What if everything you've ever been told about confidence was a lie? You've been taught to fake it till you make it, to master body language tricks, to practice power poses, to bulldoze fear by brute force. But Alan Watts would laugh at all of that. He believed confidence isn't something you build, it's something you uncover. Think about it. The sun doesn't try to shine. The ocean doesn't struggle to wave. Water doesn't force itself to flow. They simply are. And you, in your rawest, truest nature, are already as effortless, as powerful, as undeniable as them. The problem, you've been hypnotized into believing you're separate, incomplete, fragile. You've been living for the future, chasing approval, terrified of failing, desperate to hold an image together, while all along the confidence you crave was sitting quietly inside you, waiting to be noticed. Watts' philosophy reveals a paradox. The moment you stop trying to be confident, you become dangerously confident. Not loud, not cocky, but untouchable. Imagine walking into a room, not needing validation, not fearing rejection, not obsessing over how you're perceived, because you've realized you are the universe itself, looking back at itself through your eyes. That's the kind of confidence that unsettles people, the kind that makes you unpredictable, magnetic, and free. Stay with me, because in this video, we're going to peel back every illusion you've been living under and show you how to step into the most unstoppable, unshakable version of yourself. We live in a culture obsessed with confidence. Entire industries sell it to us in books, courses, seminars, and endless motivational reels. We're told that if we can just master our handshake, our body language, our tone of voice, then we'll finally project power. We're told to fake it till we make it, to trick the world and ourselves into believing we are more secure than we feel inside. But here's the dark truth. Most of what you've been taught about confidence is nothing but theater. It's a performance, a mask, a carefully curated role designed to win approval. And like any performance, it collapses the moment you forget your lines. Alan Watts saw through this illusion. He argued that true confidence isn't something you build up like a fortress. It's something you uncover, like brushing dust off a mirror to reveal the reflection that was always there. He believed that the very act of chasing confidence creates insecurity. Why? Because the chase implies lack. The more desperately you try to become confident, the more you reinforce the belief that you are not. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who seemed overconfident, the type who talks too loudly, laughs too hard, and constantly needs attention? You don't walk away thinking, wow, that person is unshakable. You walk away sensing their insecurity, because real confidence doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. And here's where Watts delivers the paradox that will challenge everything you thought you knew. The less you try to be confident, the more you naturally embody it. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff staring at the ocean. The waves don't hesitate. They don't work on their confidence before crashing against the rocks. They move because that's what they are. The sun doesn't practice shining. It simply shines. Confidence, Watts insisted, is the same. It is your natural state, buried under layers of comparison, overthinking, and self-consciousness. But society doesn't want you to know this, because if you stopped buying the illusion of confidence, you'd stop being manipulated by it. You'd stop chasing products, gurus, and systems promising to fix you. And more importantly, you'd stop being predictable. That's why this video is dangerous, because once you see through the illusion, you're no longer playing the same game as everyone else. You become untouchable. You stop reacting to every little trigger. And that, in a world built on manipulation and insecurity, makes you powerful in ways that frighten people. This is the beginning of uncovering what Watts called the truth of your nature, that you don't need to add confidence. You need to subtract the illusions that have been chained to you since birth. If you've ever felt small, insecure, or like you don't quite belong in the world, Alan Watts would say you're suffering from the greatest illusion of all, the belief that you are a separate self, trapped inside your own skin. He called this the hallucination of the ego. From the time you were a child, you were told this is you, your name, your body, your grades, your achievements, all stitched together into an identity. And slowly, you came to believe that this you was a little creature locked inside a fragile bag of skin, cut off from everything else. But this is where insecurity begins, because the moment you see yourself as separate from the rest of life, you also see yourself as vulnerable, incomplete, and under constant threat. You start asking, am I good enough? Am I attractive enough? Am I successful enough? And because the ego can never answer those questions with certainty, you end up living in a prison of endless comparison and anxiety. Watts often said trying to define the self is like trying to bite your own teeth or kiss your own lips. It's impossible, because the self you're chasing doesn't exist. It's a phantom, a story, a mask. And the harder you cling to it, the more unstable you feel. Think about the last time you walked into a room and immediately worried about how others saw you. Maybe you straightened your posture, adjusted your clothes, forced a smile. All of that effort came from the illusion that you are separate, standing against the judgmental eyes of the world. But here's the radical truth. You are not an isolated fragment fighting for survival. You are the entire universe expressing itself in the form of you. This isn't just poetic fluff. Consider a leaf on a tree. Does it exist independently? No, it's an extension of the whole tree, fed by the same roots, shaped by the same forces. In the same way, you are not separate from the universe. You are a wave of the ocean, a leaf of the tree, a spark of the fire. And once you grasp this, the idea of being not enough collapses. Because how can the universe itself be not enough? The prison of the ego is the greatest trick society plays on you. It keeps you small, anxious, and easy to manipulate. But when you tear down those walls and realize you are inseparable from the whole, that's when you begin to radiate a kind of confidence no performance can fake. It's not loud, it's not arrogant, it's simply undeniable. And that's why it feels dangerous. Because someone who no longer plays by the rules of insecurity can't be controlled. Why do so many people feel restless, anxious, and insecure, even when life looks good on the surface? Alan Watts had a brutal answer: because almost everyone is living for a future that never arrives. Think about it. You tell yourself, I'll finally feel confident when I graduate, when I get that job, when I make more money, when I find the right partner. Your entire identity hangs on a horizon that keeps moving further away. The moment you achieve one milestone, the next one appears, and while you're busy chasing it, your life is slipping by unnoticed. Watts called this the hoax of the future. He argued that the future is nothing more than an abstraction, a phantom. It doesn't exist, except in your imagination, and yet this ghost controls your entire life. It whispers promises. One day you'll feel secure, one day you'll be respected, one day you'll finally belong. But that one day never comes. The price of chasing the future is that you abandon the only thing that's real, the present. And when you abandon the present, you abandon yourself. That's why so many people feel hollow, even after achieving everything they thought would make them happy. They've been climbing a ladder that leads nowhere. Let me ask you this: how many moments of your life have you wasted rehearsing imaginary conversations, worrying about outcomes that never happened, or delaying joy because you weren't ready yet? That is time you will never get back. Here's the paradox. Confidence doesn't live in the future. It doesn't wait for you at some magical finish line. It can only be found here, now, in the raw immediacy of this moment. A mind that constantly races forward is like a hamster on a wheel, moving endlessly but never arriving. Imagine watching a musician who is obsessed with finishing the song instead of playing it. Every note would feel rushed, anxious, off-key. That's how most people live their lives, trying to get to the end instead of being fully present in the music of now. Watts insisted that the key to dangerous confidence is to stop bargaining with the future. Stop postponing your worth. Stop waiting for permission to exist. The only confidence that matters is born in presence, because presence cannot be taken away, cannot be questioned, cannot be destroyed. And here's the dangerous part. When you live fully in the present, you stop being predictable. You stop being hooked by promises, threats, and manipulations that all depend on your fear of the future. You become immune to control. This is why Watts warned that chasing the future is not just foolish, it's a form of self-destruction. Because while you're busy preparing to live, you forget to actually live. And nothing kills confidence faster than missing the only moment that ever truly exists. This one of the most toxic forces eating away at your confidence, is something you do almost without thinking: comparing yourself to others. Scroll through social media and you'll see it instantly. Someone has a better body, a bigger house, a more glamorous life. Someone your age is already ahead, and in that moment your confidence cracks. You start to feel smaller, weaker, less worthy. Alan Watts warned that this cycle of comparison is a trap with no exit. Why? Because the game itself is designed so you can never win. There will always be someone richer, prettier, smarter, more talented. If your sense of worth is tied to where you rank in comparison to others, you'll always be insecure no matter how far you climb. Worse, this addiction to comparison makes you easy to manipulate. Companies know it. That's why advertisements don't sell products, they sell status. They whisper, buy this car and you'll be respected. Wear this brand and you'll finally be desirable. Use this app and you'll be admired. But it's all smoke and mirrors. The moment you tie your value to external validation, you've built your confidence on sand. Watts argued that true confidence has nothing to do with outshining others. It comes from realizing you don't need to compete at all. You are not in a race. You are an expression of life itself, as unique and unrepeatable as a fingerprint. Comparing yourself to someone else is like comparing a wave to another wave. Pointless, because both are the ocean. But here's the hard truth. Letting go of comparison feels dangerous. Because if you stop competing, you risk losing the approval you've been conditioned to crave. You risk being misunderstood, even disliked. And yet that's the only path to real freedom. Ask yourself, how much of your life has been wasted trying to impress people who don't even care? How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no, just to avoid rejection? How often have you betrayed your own peace in exchange for scraps of validation? The moment you stop playing this game, everything shifts. At first, people will push back. They'll accuse you of being arrogant, selfish, distant. But what they're really saying is, you've stopped feeding me with your insecurity. You've stopped giving me control over how you feel about yourself, and that is exactly the point. Dangerous confidence is born when you no longer need anyone to confirm your worth. When you stop asking, do they like me, and start asking, do I like myself in this moment? That's the kind of presence that commands respect without effort. That's the kind of energy that unsettles manipulators and inspires true admiration. Because the truth is, nothing is more magnetic than someone who doesn't need to be validated. Why do so many people hesitate to take risks, speak their truth, or step into the spotlight? Because they are terrified of failure. But Alan Watts would tell you something radical. Failure is not the enemy. The obsession with perfection is. Since childhood, you've been conditioned to believe mistakes are shameful. Get a wrong answer in school, you're embarrassed. Lose a game, you're humiliated. Stumble in public, you replay it in your head for weeks. Slowly, you learn to equate failure with unworthiness. And so you start living cautiously, quietly, carefully, doing everything to avoid that sting. But Watts saw failure differently. He argued that perfection itself is an illusion, a trap the mind invents to keep you in chains. Nature is not perfect, yet it thrives. Trees grow crooked, rivers bend unpredictably, storms destroy, and still the world renews itself. Perfection is not real. Life is movement, trial, error, adaptation. To demand flawlessness from yourself is to demand something unnatural, impossible. Here's the paradox. The more you fear failure, the more powerless you become. Every hesitation, every overthinking spiral, every moment you hold back is just you worshipping the false god of perfection. But the moment you allow yourself to stumble, to experiment, to be imperfect, you step into real confidence, the kind that doesn't depend on outcomes. Think about it. What's more intimidating? The person who looks polished until they make a mistake and fall apart, or the person who makes mistakes openly, laughs and keeps moving as if nothing happened? The second person is untouchable, because failure has no power over someone who refuses to be ashamed of it. Watts often said life is like dancing. The goal isn't to reach some final perfect pose, it's to enjoy each step, even the clumsy ones. Confidence is the same. It's not about flawlessly executing your every move. It's about realizing the dance itself is the point. And here's where fear transforms. Instead of being something to eliminate, Watts believed fear could coexist with confidence. Fear is simply energy. When you stop resisting it, it loses its grip. Imagine standing on stage, your hands trembling, your voice shaking. If you try to fight that fear, it grows. But if you accept it, breathe it in, even welcome it, suddenly it becomes fuel. This is where dangerous confidence is born. When you no longer need to hide your imperfections, you become unpredictable. People can't use fear against you. They can't shame you into silence. They can't manipulate you with the threat of failure. Because once you see perfection as the lie it is, failure becomes freedom. If there's one thing Alan Watts repeated over and over, it's this. The present moment is all you ever have. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, just now. And yet most people abandon the present in exchange for anxieties about the future or regrets about the past. This is why they never feel confident. Because confidence only exists in one place, here, in this exact second. Watts described the mind as a seething cauldron of thoughts, always analyzing, calculating, predicting, judging. You've felt this, haven't you? That endless stream of chatter in your head. What if I fail? What will they think of me? Did I sound stupid? What should I say next? It's like a swarm of bees that never leaves you in peace. But notice what happens in those rare moments when the mind falls silent, maybe when you're caught in the beauty of music, or watching the ocean, or laughing so hard you forget yourself. In those moments you aren't self-conscious, you aren't comparing, you aren't performing, you're just present, and suddenly, confidence feels effortless. That's because real confidence is not about controlling outcomes. It's about showing up fully to this moment, without resistance. Watts argued that unless you can live in the present, the future is a hoax. Because the future never actually arrives, it only ever appears as a new now, which means if you can't be confident in the now, you'll never be confident at all. Here's the secret. Presence is magnetic. Think about the last time someone truly listened to you, without checking their phone, without interrupting, without drifting away. Didn't it feel powerful? That's the force of presence. It doesn't need flashy body language tricks or rehearsed speeches. Presence itself commands attention, and here's why it's dangerous. Presence breaks the cycle of manipulation. People who thrive on controlling you need you distracted, reactive, self-conscious. They need you anywhere but here. Because when you're present, you see through their games. You no longer react automatically. You pause, you breathe, you choose, and that choice makes you untouchable. Imagine walking into a room with nothing to prove, nothing to defend, nothing to chase. You're not rehearsing lines in your head, not worrying about how others see you. You're simply there, aware, calm, rooted. That stillness radiates more confidence than any forced display ever could. This is the kind of confidence Watts hinted at: effortless, unshakable, and deeply alive. A confidence that doesn't come from thinking about yourself, but from forgetting yourself altogether. Because the truth is, confidence doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from being here, fully, without apology. And when you master presence, you master yourself. At the core of Alan Watts's philosophy is a truth most people resist. You are not in control. And the harder you try to control everything, the more anxious, rigid, and insecure you become. Look around you. Rivers don't force themselves to flow. Trees don't push to grow faster. The heart doesn't beat because you will it to. It beats because that's what it does. Life moves through you, not because of you. Watts argued that confidence doesn't come from domination or control, but from surrender. Not surrender as weakness, but as alignment, allowing yourself to move with life instead of against it. He called this the art of letting go, and it's the antidote to the endless struggle of trying to manufacture certainty. Think of a surfer. They don't conquer the ocean. They don't demand the waves bend to their will. They surrender to the ocean's rhythm, riding its power instead of resisting it. That's why surfing looks effortless. It's harmony, not force. Watts believed that life itself works the same way. The insecure person tries to control outcomes, manipulate impressions, plan every move, avoid every risk. And what happens? They become tense, brittle, exhausted. The confident person, however, understands flow. They move with life, trusting that even when the wave crashes, another one is already rising. This surrender is not about giving up your ambitions. It's about dropping the need to grip so tightly that fear runs your life. When you loosen your hold, something powerful happens. Your actions become natural, not forced. Your confidence begins to flow like water, quiet, unstoppable, adaptable. Here's the paradox. The more you surrender, the more powerful you become. Because while others are rigid, locked in fear of losing control, you are fluid. You can bend, adapt, respond. People sense this. The calmness, the lack of desperation, the ease. It's not weakness, it's authority without aggression. And that is dangerous. Because someone who moves with life instead of clinging to control cannot be manipulated. They are unpredictable, untamed, untouchable. Ask yourself, how many times have you burned yourself out trying to force things to happen? How often have you exhausted your spirit, clinging to situations, relationships, or identities that were already slipping away? And did that control ever bring you peace? Watts would tell you this. Confidence comes when you stop treating life as a battle to win and start treating it as a dance to join. You don't have to control the music, you just have to let it move you. The moment you understand this, you shift from anxious striving to effortless flow. And in that flow, your confidence ceases to be something you perform. It becomes who you are. Alan Watts once said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself." At first this sounds poetic, maybe even abstract, but hidden in those words is the ultimate foundation of dangerous confidence. Because what could possibly make you more unshakable than realizing you are not a fragile, isolated ego, but the universe itself, expressing in human form? Watts dismantled the idea of the separate self. He argued that just as a leaf is not separate from the tree, or a wave is not separate from the ocean, you are not separate from the universe. You are not a lonely little being crawling across the surface of a vast, indifferent world. You are the world. You are its expression. You are it, disguised as you. Think about this. A rainbow doesn't exist by itself. It's an interaction of light, air, and water. It's not an object. It's a process, a phenomenon, a relationship. In the same way, you are not a fixed thing. You are a living process, a dynamic expression of everything that came before you and everything that surrounds you. The illusion of separation creates insecurity. But when you dissolve that illusion, a deep shift happens. Suddenly you no longer need to beg for belonging. You are belonging itself. You no longer fear insignificance, because how could the universe itself ever be insignificant? This is not arrogance. It's not walking around shouting, "I am the universe." True confidence is quieter than that. It's the kind of presence that comes when you realize you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You already are everything. Watts would say that insecurity comes from trying to stand apart from life, from pretending you're a lonely fragment. But confidence flows naturally when you realize you are life. Just as the sun doesn't strain to shine, you don't have to strain to be worthy. You are already part of the dance. And here's why this realization is dangerous. Because people can no longer manipulate you with fear. They can't convince you that you're too small, too weak, too incomplete, because you've seen through the lie. They can't scare you with rejection, because how can the universe reject itself? They can't seduce you with false belonging, because you know you already belong. When you truly grasp this, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because people feel the difference. They sense someone who doesn't need validation, who doesn't beg for acceptance, who radiates wholeness from within. That presence unsettles the insecure and inspires the awakened. This is what Watts meant when he said real confidence is not built, it's uncovered. It's not something you add on top of yourself, it's something you realize was always there, the simple truth that you are the universe in disguise. Alan Watts believed life was not a problem to be solved, but a game to be played. And when you grasp this, your entire approach to confidence changes. Most people treat life like a courtroom. Every action is judged. Every mistake is evidence against them. Every risk is a potential humiliation. So they tighten up. They rehearse their words, police their emotions, and walk on eggshells. And what's the result? Anxiety, paralysis, a brittle kind of confidence that cracks under the slightest pressure. Watts would laugh at this. He argued that the secret to dangerous confidence lies in embracing spontaneity, in letting go of the obsession with control and simply playing with life. Think about children. They're not worried about how they look while dancing, or whether their drawing is good enough. They just do it. Their confidence is raw, natural, uncalculated. Somewhere along the way, adults lose this. They trade play for performance, spontaneity for self-consciousness. But Watts insisted that true power comes from rediscovering that playfulness, not in a childish way, but in a fearless way. When you stop overthinking every move and start living as if life is a grand improvisation, people can feel it. You become unpredictable, magnetic, alive. Here's the paradox. The less you care about being confident, the more confident you appear. The less you chase approval, the more respect you attract. Because people are drawn to those who radiate freedom, the freedom to be imperfect, the freedom to laugh at themselves, the freedom to take risks without clinging to outcomes. Watts often compared life to music. The point of a song isn't to reach the final note, it's to enjoy every note along the way. Imagine listening to a symphony where the musicians were obsessed with getting it right instead of playing. It would sound mechanical, lifeless. That's what most people's lives look like, rehearsed, careful, safe. But when you treat life like music, playful, expressive, unpredictable, you stop performing and start living. And here's why that kind of playfulness is dangerous, because it makes you uncontrollable. Manipulators can't guilt-trip someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously. Society can't shame someone who's willing to laugh at their own failures. Fear loses its grip on someone who treats mistakes as part of the game. Confidence doesn't have to be rigid, serious, or heavy. In fact, the most intimidating presence often belongs to the person who seems light, untouchable, amused by life's chaos, because they've realized the truth. Nothing is under control, so why not play? This is the confidence of spontaneity, the kind that unnerves the rigid and liberates the free. If you've ever felt like a puppet pulled by invisible strings, reacting to every insult, every demand, every expectation, then you've experienced what it means to live without an observer self. Alan Watts taught that one of the most liberating practices is learning to step back and watch your own mind. To realize that you are not every thought, not every emotion, not every reaction. Instead, you are the awareness behind them. Picture this: someone criticizes you. Instantly, you feel the burn, the impulse to defend, to argue, to prove yourself. Most people get hijacked by this reflex. They lash out or shut down, and in that moment, they've lost their power. Why? Because they let someone else push their buttons. But the moment you cultivate the observer self, the game changes. Instead of reacting automatically, you pause, you notice. Here comes the anger, here comes the shame, here comes the urge to prove myself. You don't fight it, you don't deny it, you just watch. And in that watching, the manipulation collapses. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The observer self is how you make it conscious. It's how you stop being a prisoner of reflexes and become the master of your responses. This isn't about becoming cold or robotic, it's about reclaiming your energy. Every time you explode in anger or beg for approval, you bleed power. But when you observe instead of react, you conserve it. Your silence, your stillness, your refusal to be dragged into drama, that unsettles people more than any argument could. Here's why this is dangerous. Most of society runs on predictable reactions. Advertisers provoke insecurity to make you buy. Manipulators provoke guilt to make you comply. Toxic people provoke anger to keep you engaged. But when you stop reacting, you break the cycle. You become unreadable, unshakable, untouchable. Think about the last time someone expected you to snap back, to explain yourself, to justify. What if instead you simply watched, breathed, and chose silence? That silence would reveal more about them than about you. It would force them to confront their own emptiness, because they could no longer use you as their emotional mirror. This is the power of the observer self. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it is devastating. It allows you to move through the world with a calm that feels unearthly, a composure that others can't rattle. And that is a kind of confidence so rare, people mistake it for danger. Because in a world addicted to noise, the one who watches in silence holds the real power. Up to this point, we've explored Alan Watts' radical view that confidence is not built, but uncovered. We've seen how presence, surrender, and the observer self dissolve insecurity at its root. But how does this inner transformation translate into the outer world? Here's the truth. When you embody real confidence, you don't have to project it. It projects itself. Think about posture. Most advice tells you to stand tall, shoulders back, chin up. But if inside you're still drowning in self-doubt, it comes off as forced. People can feel the tension, the performance. Real posture is not about arranging your body, it's about relaxing into your natural presence. When you're not faking anything, your body aligns on its own. The same is true with voice. You don't need to practice sounding confident. If you're grounded in the present, if you're not rushing to prove yourself, your voice naturally slows, deepens, and carries weight. Silence becomes your ally. Pauses command attention. People lean in, not because you shout, but because you don't need to. Dangerous confidence is subtle. It's in the way you walk into a room without needing to dominate it. It's in the way you look at someone without flinching, not because you're trying to intimidate them, but because you have nothing to hide. It's in your willingness to say no without guilt, to hold silence without fear, to let others reveal themselves while you remain steady. Here's the paradox. The less you try to appear confident, the more others experience you as unshakable. Why? Because you've stopped leaking energy into performance. You've stopped begging for approval. You've stopped chasing outcomes. All that energy now radiates as presence. This is the kind of confidence that unsettles people. It doesn't look like arrogance or bravado. It looks like calm indifference. Manipulators can't hook you, critics can't provoke you, and crowds can't sway you. And because you're no longer desperate for validation, people instinctively validate you. They sense authority without effort. Look at history's most magnetic figures, philosophers, leaders, mystics. Their power wasn't in theatrics, it was in their stillness, their refusal to be rattled. They carried themselves as if they were already whole. And that wholeness commanded loyalty, admiration, and sometimes even fear. Alan Watts would say this is the natural outcome of living in alignment with your true nature. You don't need to project anything. The universe projects itself through you. And when people encounter that, they feel something rare, something untamed, something dangerous. So here's the question. When you walk into the world tomorrow, will you keep wearing the mask of performance? Or will you dare to walk as you truly are, effortless, whole, unshakable? Because once you choose the latter, the world will never look at you the same way again. We began this journey with a simple but radical idea. Confidence is not something you build, it's something you uncover. Alan Watts pulled back the curtain on the illusions that keep you small, the lie of the separate self, the trap of comparison, the addiction to the future, the obsession with perfection. Each one of these illusions feeds insecurity, making you predictable, manipulable, weak. But step by step, we've dismantled those chains. You've seen that the prison of insecurity collapses the moment you realize you are not a fragile ego trapped in skin, but the universe itself in disguise. You've seen that the future is a phantom, and the only real confidence lives in the present. You've seen that failure is not the enemy, but the doorway to freedom. You've seen that surrender, play, and presence make you untouchable in ways performance never could. And most importantly, you've seen that dangerous confidence isn't about arrogance, dominance, or aggression. It's about wholeness. It's about moving through the world without apology, without need, without fear. This is the rebirth Alan Watts hinted at. The moment you stop being a reactor and become a creator. The moment you stop chasing confidence and realize you are confidence. Not loud, not performative, but undeniable. Now imagine carrying this into your life. Walking into rooms without needing to prove anything. Facing rejection without trembling. Laughing at failure because it no longer defines you. Choosing silence when others expect panic. That's what it means to be dangerously confident, not because you overpower others, but because you can no longer be overpowered. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop needing validation, people will validate you more. The moment you stop chasing confidence, people will sense it radiating from you. The moment you stop trying to be someone, you become unforgettable. So I'll leave you with this. From this moment on, you don't need to ask for permission to exist. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to fake confidence. You are already it. You are already whole. You are already dangerous in the best way possible. If this message spoke to you, take a second to reflect. Which illusion has been stealing your power the most? Comparison, perfection, fear of rejection? Drop it in the comments, not just for me, but for yourself, as a declaration that you're done living small. And if you want to continue this journey, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who's been living under the weight of their own illusions. Because the world doesn't need more people pretending to be confident. It needs more people who are confident because they've uncovered the truth of who they are. This is your rebirth, your untouchable self, your dangerous confidence.